There was a guy called Yecheskel, and he was not that old, but he was in his late 60s. And he starts feeling some pain in his chest, and the last time he had gone to the doctor, everything had passed through flying colors, everything was fine. But he felt this time it's a little different. So he goes to his doctor, and they run some x-rays, and the doctor comes back to him and says, Cheskel, I'm sorry. I got kind of like bad news, but we caught it on time. You actually have your arteries are blocked and you need a triple bypass surgery ASAP. It's very dangerous, but we have to do it as soon as possible because it's literally clogged. So he calls his family comes to the hospital, and then they're taking him into the surgery. It takes a few hours. He has 3 sons, I think Yossi, Yaakov, and Robert. And the sons come, and after the surgery, he comes back, and the doctors come to the family and they say, we're sorry, but the surgery did not go as planned. And he's having a very hard time breathing. It's been a few hours. We don't know what's going to happen. So we think you guys should really have a talk with him and prepare. And they're broken. The mother's broken, the sons. They come around the bed, and he's having a lot of difficulty breathing. They're trying everything. So as if he's already getting signs that he's leaving this world, he calls each of his sons. He calls his firstborn son, and he gives him his mission, and he tells him he wants him to lead. He was the Gabbai of the shul himself. He says he wants him to be the new Gabbai of the shul, take care of things that need to be taken care of at the synagogue. And he gives him responsibilities, take care of his mother, make sure the bills are paid. And they're crying as they're hearing their father giving his last words. It's like, yesterday he was fine. The second son comes. Abba, please don't talk like this. Please don't. And he didn't want to even stop them. He could barely breathe. And he starts giving them his tzava, his command, his last will and testament of what to do. Finally comes for his youngest son, Robert. Now Robert had lost his way since he was a teenager. The rest of the family had clinged on to their traditions, going to synagogue and being a part of the minyanim and being a part of their community. Robert, after his teen years, he left everything. It had been 10 years since he stepped into a synagogue altogether. He had moved away to Arizona. He had nothing to do with religion whatsoever, married with a woman that was also completely off, Jewish, completely off. They were living a life of success, business, period. Robert comes to his father's deathbed. And he's crying because he loves his father so much. And he says, Abba, whatever it is you need, please tell me something. Whatever you need me to do. It was as if he was begging him to give him a responsibility so that he can prove himself to his father, so that he can continue after his father. With his last breaths, he says, I want you to promise me. He says, just tell me what it is. He says, promise me first. He says, I promise you whatever it is, I'll do it. He says, you promise that until the day that you do not mend your ways, you will not say Kaddish. At this point, he's in tears. His father does not want him to say Kaddish for him. This is a boy that's gone. He cares less for Shabbat, Kashrut, nothing. But when it comes to say Kaddish, everybody believes, every Jew believes that it's the last thing you could do for someone that's gone, and every person that's leaving, it's that thing they want their children. Any Jew, after 120 years, that's the only thing that's left. I've spoken to so many people. One of their concerns is someone going to say Kaddish for them. I remember my grandfather, Alav Shalom, he only had daughters. And I remember he used to tell my mother, who's going to say Kaddish? Because he only had daughters. And women, Sephardic women, do not make Kaddish. And my mother used to always say, don't worry. He was such a tzaddik, don't worry, you're going to have people to say Kaddish for you. And Baruch Hashem, every time on his yard site, he has all of his grandchildren saying Kaddish for him. The neshama feels it. They need their chains, their links to remember them and say Kaddish in their name. This father tells Robert, until you don't mend your ways, no. And the entire family watches as the last words out of their father's mouth is this command to Robert. And he passes away. He has a tumult going on in his mind. On one side, he's thinking to himself, he can't stop me. It's my mitzvah. He can't tell me not to do it. How can he take this away from me? I have to do it. It's for his neshama. And then he's thinking to himself, but he doesn't want me to do it. Comes the burial. It's very hard for them because it was so sudden. The whole family's broken. Finally, they put the last shovel of dirt. And that's when the family gets up, the boys get up to make Kaddish. Everyone notices Robert is the only one standing there with tears in his eyes, not saying Kaddish. Comes every day of the Shiva, the 7 days of Shiva. Every day. They had a minyan, the brothers were saying Kaddish. Robert was the only one not saying Kaddish. Finally, the Shiva is over. Everybody goes home. Robert goes back to Arizona broken. Couldn't work, could barely eat. He would go to work like a robot, come back home, and he's just distraught. One day his wife comes home and finds Robert with his head on his knees crying like a baby. He hadn't even cried that bad when his father passed away. She comes to him and says, what's going on? He says, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't take this life. It's not worth it. I want to change everything around because I want to say Kaddish. And his wife, such a beautiful soul, she says, whatever you do, I'm behind you. If it means that much to you, we'll change everything around. And from that day, they decide to go back to their roots, to accept their traditions again. And the wife is behind them. On the 30th, they go back to the family. And on the 30th, that was the first time that Reuven, who took back his Hebrew name, made Kaddish in front of everyone. We live 120 years in this life, but 120 years even is a short time. We could do a lot of things in our lives. A lot. We could forget that God even exists. But you can never forget that you're not going to live forever. And there's going to come those moments when you think, who's going to say Kaddish? It matters. If we always think along those lines, we will rarely find ourselves falling off the path. Always remember that life is finite. And one day, we want someone to be there to remember us. To be Mekadesh Shem Shamayim, to sanctify God's name and our name. May we all be zocheh, to have children, children's children, to always remember us b'shalom. Amen. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen.